Hello, I'm Elucent, and welcome to part 4, the final part of my developer spotlight for the Eidolon mod for 1.16. Whew, that's a mouthful. In the last episode, we talked about theurgy and how to progress in theurgy and learn more and more signs and sacrifices and all that fun stuff. And in the episode before that, we talked about a bunch of crafting mechanics that you can use in the mod. But I didn't really go into that much of how they're actually used. And so that's what this episode is all about. We're going to talk about, finally, all the really cool stuff that you can make in Eidolon that makes it worth it to go through all these hoops and go through all these recipes and pledge yourself to the Dark Lord. The mod is still pretty early in development, so there's only so many things. There's not a crazy amount of stuff to do. But I'd like to think there's enough that it's pretty useful. And especially in the right combinations, some of these items can be very, very powerful. So definitely sort of keep that angle. These aren't designed to be like game-changing necessarily, but there's a lot of nice little perks and things that you can use in your world that you gain access to after you start progressing. So to actually continue with this, I'd like to go back to my setup from part 2, where I've got these crafting stations prepared. I might not actually do that much crafting in this episode, but I will show you all the recipes so you can know what to make. And as per usual, I won't be going over everything, but I'll be showing off a couple highlights of some interesting items you can make with this mod. All right, first things first, let's talk about, what would be a good one? Let's talk about the Soulfire Wand. The Soulfire Wand is crafted at a magic workbench using some arcane gold. It requires a lesser soul gem and also a shadow gem, which is this powerful necromantic gem that you can craft with Essence of Death. It's actually quite expensive. It takes a gas tier, a diamond, and 2 Essence of Death, which is another alchemy recipe that you craft from a zombie heart, which, as I mentioned all the way back in part 1, is actually a fairly rare drop. So shadow gems are definitely not messing around. If we get one, though, we can acquire a Soulfire Wand, which is a very nice magical weapon. If I go into survival, I guess I don't really need to, but I might as well just to show off how this works in combat. Let's say we have this spider here, and I've made them angry. Oh no, they're chasing me. What am I going to do? Well, I've got this fancy wand here, and bam. Well, there's sort of some unfortunate grass in the way. Let's do that again. Got a spider. And now we don't. So yeah, that's the Soulfire Wand. Just using it fires some really cool magical projectiles. And I've actually been this is probably one of the particle effects I'm most proud of in this mod. Also the sound effects are really nice. I'm just very happy with this item overall. So in terms of how this works and how well it works, you'll notice that it did a pretty decent amount of damage. It was able to 3-hit the spider, although an iron sword can do that, so that doesn't necessarily mean too much on its own. In terms of actual damage, the Soulfire Wand does actually do about as much as a diamond sword. And it is also, of course, ranged, and you can spam it twice a second. So in terms of attack speed, it actually is a little bit faster, so its DPS is probably a little bit higher than a diamond sword. Still, you can't really enhance that with enchantments, so it's maybe not the most powerful weapon in the world in terms of raw damage output. You'll also notice that it has durability, and actually using it a couple times has reduced it just a little bit. I think you've got about 500 uses per craft, so it's not really a small number, but it will eventually go down, so you want to make sure your shots count. This might seem like a bit of a downer to you, because, well, okay, you go through all this trouble to make this powerful item, and it has less durability and debatably less DPS than potentially a diamond sword, so that could be a little bit disappointing. But there's an aspect of this that is actually very, very, very powerful. And it's a little hard to demonstrate, so I'll just, kill a pig for sake of demonstration. But the damage that this actually does is magic, which, just like a potion of harming or dragon breath or something like that, will pierce armor. And so this wand is actually quite powerful against armored foes, where their armor might normally be able to defend against most of your weapons. This wand should go mostly right through them, dealing a full diamond sword's worth of damage per hit. So hopefully that makes it worth it. In addition, the durability problem is actually a little bit less of a concern when you enchant it. These wands are actually enchantable with both unbreaking and mending, so you can extend the durability considerably or potentially indefinitely by doing that. Altogether, that's the Soulfire Wand. It's sort of an interesting and I think very pretty magical weapon you can craft. All right, next up, let's talk about another thing you can do with shadow gems, and that is making armor. There's a couple different pieces of armor in this mod that form the Warlock Set, and I plan on adding some more armor sets in the future. But all of these are crafted out of this item called Wicked Weave, which, as you can see, requires an unholy symbol, so you'll need to have some progress in theurgy, a shadow gem, 8 wool, and some blue dye. This makes a good amount of it, so you only need like 2 shadow gems to actually make the full set. I guess I don't really need to go through all the crafting recipes, but you can see them here. They're not too complicated, but they'll need some soul shards. If I spawn these in, oop, that's not the one I wanted to spawn. All right, Warlock's Hat, Warlock's Cloak, and Warlock's Boots. We can equip these, and bam. Looks pretty spiffy, I think. And the cloak actually moves a little bit as you walk, too. Each one of these pieces has a different effect, and so if we actually go to the Artifice chapter, we can read up on these. The Warlock's Hat helps your offensive abilities, and so whenever you do magic or wither damage, it'll give you an additional 50%, so it boosts the damage you do with necrotic and magical effects. It also introduces a slight lifesteal effect, where if you hit something with wither damage, it'll heal you for, I think, about half of its normal, half of the damage dealt. The Warlock's Cloak is defensive. It's fairly simple. When you wear it, it reduces magic and wither damage by half. And then finally, the Warlock's Boots are actually quite interesting. When worn, you're basically, whenever you walk over something that would make you move slower, it'll reduce the effect that it slows you down by about half. So things like Soul Sand, you don't have soul speed, so you don't move faster on it, but you won't be slowed down quite as much. Additionally, you become immune to the slowness effect, which is just sort of a nice perk. Also, all of these items are fairly durable, between iron and diamond in terms of durability, and they're also highly enchantable, so you can usually get some pretty good enchantments on these if you enchant them. And yeah, you'll notice there's also not a pants slot, so if you're lacking protection, you can always add, some netherite leggings or something to bump yourself up a bit. So that's really all there is to say. There's not too much else to show off as far as that's concerned. It's mostly numerical, but I do think it looks quite cool, and I hope you do too. I plan on expanding some of the armor options in this mod pretty soon, but we'll see how soon I actually get to that. All right, so that's the Warlock set. Next up, I want to talk about a block that the mod actually adds. This is called the Soul Enchanter. You can craft it like so, with obsidian, diamonds, and a book like normal, but with some arcane gold added in. So you'll notice it actually doesn't require that much progress. And this is actually a very nifty little block. If we put it down, you'll see it looks a lot like an enchantment table, but it's a little bit more golden. And it operates kind of similarly to an enchantment table as well, but there's one major difference. So first of all, instead of lapis, we're going to need to provide some soul shards. Luckily, I've got 3 of them. Next, you'll notice that there's no actual level requirements. We don't need to be level 30 or whatever in order to select an enchantment in the Soul Enchanter. Instead, all of these are available as long as we can pay the base cost. So as long as we have 1 level, we can enchant this with any of these basic enchantments. Let's go with Unbreaking. As you can see, we just enchanted this sword with Unbreaking, but it's still enchantable. And you'll notice that instead of just level 1 enchantments, we now have the opportunity to enchant with Unbreaking 2. This will cost 2 levels though. So in total, if we want to upgrade to Unbreaking 2, we'll use another soul shard, we'll use 2 levels, and then we'll just have Unbreaking 2. So that sort of highlights most of the major differences with the Soul Enchanter. Unlike an ordinary enchanting table, you have a lot more control over how and when you enchant your items. You can enchant much more incrementally, instead of just rolling the dice all at once in a normal enchantment table. And so this can be very helpful, especially if you find treasure items that have rare enchantments like Frostwalker or Mending or something like that, and you can't disenchant them. Um, an alternative to just sort of leaving them around and not really using them for anything is to actually put them into the Soul Enchanter and actually buff them with additional enchants. And you can do this up until the item has all the enchants it possibly can. So if I was to do this over and over and over again, it would eventually end up with every possible sword enchantment. Well, not the ones that are incompatible with each other, but it would be the maximum number of enchants possible on a sword. The downside of all of this is that it's a lot more costly. While it doesn't require a certain XP level in order to be able to use, every single time you enchant is going to be taking your levels. And the number of levels depends on the level of the enchantment you're trying to apply. So if you have a sword with, say, sharpness 4, and you want to upgrade it to sharpness 5, you'll actually need to spend 5 levels to take it that last step of the way. So that's sort of the trade-off. You have a lot more control over your enchantments, but you also have to pay a lot more for them. And, on top of all this, you also need to spend soul shards, which are not the easiest thing to come by. I mean, they're not super rare, but it could be a little bit of a pain. So I mostly see this as sort of an interesting side grade to the enchantment table. For getting powerful enchantments, the enchantment table is probably the most effective way for you to do that. But after you enchant an item, it's possible you could go to your Soul Enchanter and toss something extra like Fire Aspect or Knockback on it for a relatively low cost. All right, that's basically all there is to know about the Soul Enchanter. But I hope it's handy, I hope it's useful, and I hope you enjoy it in your worlds. Okay, what other items should I talk about? Let's talk about the Reaper Scythe, and then I think we'll talk about one more. The Reaper Scythe is notable in that it's one of the items you can craft after you get the Unholy Symbol. You can see it's not too expensive. We just need the Unholy Symbol. We'll need a Tattered Cloth dropped from a Wraith, and some Soul Shards and some other ingredients to make one. When we craft it, it serves as a fairly powerful weapon. It's got a little bit higher attack speed than an Iron Axe, but it's also got a little bit less attack damage, so you can consider it basically comparable to an Iron Sword. However, it has a special ability. If I summon in some undead mobs, like this Husk, for example, there we go. You can see he chases me down, but if I take him out with this Scythe, there's a little blast of particles, and I actually end up picking up a Soul Shard. Let me do that again just to make sure the particles are clear. Yeah, there you go. You can see it's pretty quick, I should say. But it's actually the same effect as the Ritual of Crystallization. You'll also notice we're not getting very many Soul Shards. Both Husks only dropped 1, and it's possible for them to not actually drop any at all. So this is really just sort of an alternative or augment to the Crystallization Ritual. It's not as effective, it's not as resource efficient, it's not as, easy to use in terms of like getting a large number of Soul Shards as the Crystallization Ritual. But it does allow you to be at least a little bit more active in terms of how you collect Soul Shards. While you don't get as many per mob, you could kill a lot of mobs with this and still accrue quite a large number. It should also be noted that, because this requires an Unholy Symbol, this is actually one of the nicer rewards, I think, to progressing down the Theurgy route a bit, because it does make collecting Soul Shards at least a little bit easier, gives you more options. And that's really all there is to say about the Reaper's Scythe. All right. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it's one of my favorite items in this mod, and actually one of the first items I added. Let me go into creative just to make this a little bit easier. We're going to want to actually expand our ritual setup a bit. Notice that the stone hands don't really need any particular configuration. I'm just sort of spreading them out for aesthetic purposes. For this ritual, we're going to do we're going to craft a Sanguine item. So the Sanguine items are special items that you create using a ritual instead of the other crafting mechanics. In order to create them, we need to perform a ritual with normal ingredients, specifically the Sanguine Ritual, which uses a Potion of Harming as its central item. And we also need to sacrifice some creatures. So undead creatures won't work. We'll need some living creatures, like animals or villagers, nearby, worth 20 hearts of health total. If this number of hearts isn't present, the ritual will try to consume from anything else, like nearby players. And if it runs out of health, it will basically just fail, and you'll have wasted all these items, some of which are kind of hard to come by, like a diamond or a lesser soul gem. So definitely try to be a little careful. Let's set up all the ingredients. So it uses an amulet as a focus, because that's what we're going to be imbuing. Requires a lesser soul gem, 4 redstone, a diamond, and a potion of harming. So in theory, this should work. Now, be warned, this has given me a little bit of trouble recently. This is one of the last sort of bugs I was fixing. I think this will work. Oh, I almost forgot the creatures. I gotta dig a little pit for some... let's use some villagers. I actually already have the spawn egg. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna need at least 20 hearts worth of creatures. I'll just use 3 villagers just in case. We've got all of the ingredients set up. Let's hope this works. Awesome. Okay. All right. So that's not bugged anymore. I had to fix that last time I tried recording this. All right. So by sacrificing some creatures, providing a bunch of ingredients, we have obtained the Sanguine Amulet. And this is actually a very powerful item. If I go into survival mode, it won't actually do anything right now because we're a little low on hunger and we're not at our full health. But if I pull up some steak real quick, or just throw it on the floor, that's fine too. You'll notice that my normal health fills up, and then slowly, these extra hearts start appearing at the bottom of the Sanguine Amulet. We've only got a couple at the moment, but the total size of this can actually go all the way up to about 20 hearts of additional health. Now you'll notice this is actually consuming hunger. And so this doesn't just happen for free. It only happens when we're at full health and we have the ability to naturally regenerate hunger. So if I eat another steak, you'll see that hearts again slowly start ticking up. We also don't actually get that many of them per food item. Like I think we get about 3 per steak or so. So it's a little bit more expensive than normal health regeneration. But essentially, this amulet will store up health that we regenerate when we don't need to regenerate health. And if we ever take damage, so let me actually take off my armor just so this is very clear and summon in, let's say, another spider. You'll notice that I'm regenerating incredibly quickly. All right, that's enough. And correspondingly, the number of hearts in our Sanguine Amulet has actually been reduced somewhat. So this is its effect. When you're at full health and you can regenerate health, the Sanguine Amulet will sap your hunger as long as it's not full. And I believe the cap is either 10 or 20 hearts. But whenever you take damage, if there's health in the Sanguine Amulet, it will rapidly heal you, faster than basically any other regeneration in the game, short of maybe like Regeneration 3 potions. So very, very useful. It doesn't quite give you extra maximum health because you can still, take enough damage that the regen doesn't get you fast enough. But it's a very powerful item and makes you a lot more durable. And just in terms of overall how it looks and works, I'm very happy with it. All right, so that's just sort of an introduction to some of the magic items in Eidolon. There are a lot more. I've showed you maybe a third of the items in the mod, and I plan on adding many, many more in the coming updates. But hopefully that at least indicates to you some of the cases in which Eidolon can be useful. I really wanted to make sure this mod had some serious purposes. I know with some of my previous mods like Roots and Embers, it's a little hard to get them to be useful. It takes a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. And so for this mod, I wanted to try to amp up the power a little bit. Hopefully that comes through. And I yeah, really all I can say is I hope you enjoy this mod. It's been a pleasure working on it, and I hope to work on it quite a lot more in the future. I'm pretty time constrained right now, so I can't promise any updates will be coming out super soon. But I'll be doing like bug fixes and stuff for any inevitable launch bugs that may occur. And yeah, just overall, I I really I guess I really just want to thank the community for like it's been a very long time, but there are like when I came back into the modding community in like October, um, and I started working on this mod in secret, uh, people were very, very, very welcoming. It really was very motivating and very, very lovely to see that even after so long being gone and after all sorts of weird bits of drama back in the day, um, I was able to still come back and make a mod, and now it's coming out. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I hope you enjoy Eidolon, and I hope, yeah, I guess that's really all there is to say. I really hope you enjoy that mod. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.